Okay, so we got to clarify some things because this is breaking. This is important news. So we got to share this. Um, Apparently, there has been some updates, updates with the Joe Rogan show saying that he wants to interview Kamala Harris. So, first of all, there's been a lot of talk about what happened to Joe Rogan's interview. He posted the full thing of him with Donald Trump on his X account, which is perfectly fine. Obviously, there seems to be some weird shenanigans going on with YouTube. That's up for Joe Rogan. He'll explain more what's going on there on his platform. But first, there's an article from Politico which says Rogan says he rejected Harris's campaign interview conditions. So what's going on? Podcaster host Joe Rogan declined the Harris campaign offer to record an interview with Kamala Harris on Tuesday because he would have to travel to her and they would only want to do an hour. But the interview isn't off the table. So I listened. The Harris campaign did not immediately respond for a request for comment. The Joe Rogan Experience is the largest podcast in the U.S. With an audience that is largely young and male. The demographic where former President Donald Trump leads over Harris. The Harris campaign has worked to gain support with male voters in recent weeks, such as EOC playing on Twitch or Kamala doing a custom map on Fortnite called Freedom Town USA. Sometimes I cry. Sometimes my soul cries. I need a milkshake. An interview with Rogan would offer Harris the opportunity to make her case to his large audience. However, can she do 3 hours? Hey, folks, let's have democracy in the chat. In a hypothetical scenario, because anything can happen between now and November 5th, if Kamala Harris was to show up on the Joe Rogan podcast, do you think she could do a 3-hour podcast with Joe Rogan? You think she could do it? Type 1 for yes, kid, she can. Yes, she can. Type 2, no. This is one time I got to agree with Trump. She ain't going to hold up. Plus, they want to do it for an hour. Why an hour? Now, look, I've watched the Joe Rogan Experience, and I've never seen him have an interview that was an hour, or especially with recent interviews that he's done. I mean, it's always been a 2-hour like podcast. I mean, that's what's happened all the time, every time. I mean, this isn't open for a debate. This is fact. And the article then goes on to say, Rogan, a comedian turned podcaster and UFC commentator, has hosted a range of guests with diverse ideologies on his show, from conspiracy theorists Alex Jones to comedians like Chris Rock and political figures like Trump and Bernie Sanders, which, by the way, when Bernie Sanders showed up on Joe Rogan's show, that seems to have triggered AOC. It triggered AOC a lot. She didn't like it. She didn't like it at all. She didn't like the fact that was going down. And, I wonder how AOC would feel if Kamala did show up on Rogan's podcast. She'd probably say, this is violence. Trump sit down in Austin on Friday with Rogan, which has more than 37 million views on YouTube, lasted the usual 3 hours. In a wide-ranging interview, he said a politician needs the attitude of a comedian and shared he regretted some past political appointments. He also called hosts of The View so stupid. That's funny to me. In his interview with Rogan, Trump said he hoped Harris would agree to sit down with Rogan because it would be a mess. Rogan responded that they would have a fine conversation. So what did Joe Rogan say? What exactly happened? Okay. So first of all, this is from his official X account. Since there's an issue with searching for this episode on YouTube, here's the full podcast with Trump. There you go. It's about, again, almost basically 3 hours. Now here is Rogan's comment on the Harris campaign. Also, for the record, the Harris campaign has not passed on doing the podcast. They offered a date for Tuesday, but I would have to travel to her, and they only wanted to do an hour. I strongly feel the best way to do it is in the studio in Austin. He is correct. Plus, look, never mind. I'm going to save my opinions for this after. My sincere wish is to have a nice conversation and get to know her as a human being. I really hope we can make it happen. So, first of all, let me break this down here. It is very clear to me, and all of you watching, Joe Rogan has a very successful and powerful podcast platform, okay? He is number one in the game. He is the heavyweight champion, okay? I like to joke that I'm the heavyweight champion, but I'm the heavyweight champion, and I guess being censored, whatever. All right, whatever for that one. Maybe I'm the hardcore heavyweight champion. There you go. But nonetheless, this is a very popular platform that's seen on a show on many different platforms with a million plus 10 million plus, I dare say it's much higher than that, viewing audience. Those are potential voters. And you are a presidential candidate in a neck-and-neck race against a former president who is right now gaining a lot of momentum, and you are refusing to fly to Austin to do an interview, and you want him to fly to you to do a 1-hour interview. What's the frickin' point? That's an insult. That's a slap in the face. No, Rogan should not compromise on that, and I'm glad that he's not. How is it that you're a politician and you're going to ignore a golden opportunity to get your word out there? This is a terrible campaign. Who is managing Kamala? Is this truly a clown show? Because I've never seen this amount of stupidity in any single presidential candidate. You have a chance. Bernie went on Joe Rogan's show. Tulsi Gabbard went on Joe Rogan's show. Andrew Yang went on Joe Rogan's show during the 2020 primaries. And, that actually gave them a boost to all their campaigns, respectively, okay? I know a lot has happened since 2020, but let's be clear on this, because the point of doing this show is to call things out. When you go on a popular platform like that, that's a boost to your numbers and people to know your name. Your name is your name. And if you are in such a tight race, Trump took advantage of it. And listen, let's be clear. There was a point, I played that video earlier where Rogan said he didn't want to talk to Trump. Whatever. Hey, people do change. And Trump, especially during this election cycle, with what's been going on with him, with the lawsuits, the legal battles. And I don't wish that on anybody because I think that would make anybody snap or go crazy. Then you have 2 attempts on his life. Of course, you want to do a sit-down interview with him. Do I think it broke the internet? It broke a lot of liberals' minds. But liberals, your girl Kamala is struggling. I want to pull up this tweet again one more time. Also, for the record, the Harris campaign has not passed on doing the podcast. This came out yesterday at 11:26 p.m. in the evening. Also, for the record, the Harris campaign has not passed on doing the podcast. They offered a date for Tuesday, but I would have to have traveled to her, and they wanted to do an hour. There's only so much you could talk about in an hour, and we all know how Joe Rogan runs his show. I strongly feel the best way to do this is in the studio in Austin. My sincere wish is to have a nice conversation and get to know her as a human being. I really hope we can make it happen. No, that's not going to happen. Because if she's willing to snub him like this, it tells me that maybe she thinks that she could do it, do some other cringe things, like do more video game outreach. Video game outreach ain't going to do jack, okay? You want to know why people are on Twitch to play video games, or either that, playing video games in general? It's to escape politics. I do that too. Listen, I love talking about politics, but I want to escape. However, people do listen to podcasts in this day and age. I mean, let's face it, podcasts are very relevant. People listen to them. There's a lot of podcasts in the world, but you are going to miss the opportunity of going on the most popular, most powerful, game-changing platform that your campaign desperately needs. Good luck, Kamala. But maybe, Rogan, you could be dodging a bullet, because you know something. If we've been paying attention to Kamala Harris's recent town halls and interviews, it's clear, very clear to me, that she's struggling. And I wonder if the Harris campaign is going to ask for this not to be live, but for it to be recorded, so that maybe, I don't know, they get Jamie to edit the interview. I mean, wouldn't that be a sight? Edit the interview so she sounds better on Joe Rogan's show. Now, I don't see that happening, but it is an interesting concept to bring up. Missing an opportunity. Well, if you want to miss that shot, miss your shot. But if you want to play the game, you got to get into the lion's den. You got to be ready to fight and talk for your policies. Unless Kamala Harris really can't speak for 3 hours. Can she handle these questions without doing word salad? I think we already know the answer.
I guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want me to say? You prove it's possible to sleep for days and to still think you're right here awake. The cost of living isn't much to make, but God, it's so hard to save. And when they told you everything was safe, Were you safe? Were you safe? Were you safe? Were you safe? I guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want me to say? You prove it's possible to sleep for days, and I still think you're right here awake. The cost of living isn't much to make, but God, it's so hard to say. And when they told you everything was safe, were you safe? Were you safe? Were you safe? Were you safe?
Fresh off the masses, the brand new cancerous growth, who has come here to vie for your vote. Come here to cry at the camps and to mourn at the shore for the bodies that float by the wreck of an immigrant boat. Then it's back to their luxury home, couple security booths and a moat. Couple cigars, little escargot, little booze and a soak. Just breathe in the steam and the smoke. Pink salt, lavender, candles are low. Shit, when you do what you do, gotta lighten the load. And he got a life of his own that's a sight to behold. And it's a lot to control, to decipher the code, or to siphon the soul. The cost of a good night's sleep for the working elite is a bargain, no matter the toll. Worth any wager, and that comes straight from the mouth of the means to the goal that will swallow us whole. Right for the picking if you don't mind mold, and you know I don't. Maybe we're pleasantly prone, maybe we're taking a licking, compliantly ticking and ticking and ticking, but never explode. No, I don't deliver the prettiest image, but damn if it isn't an accurate vision of natural fission, of rage at the system and abject heartbreak, patiently waiting for any who will listen. That little blue bird who was watching your words is a federal carrier pigeon, a Langley first. It's a patient observer who hears what it wants and is trained for the worst. Oh, you got nothing to hide. They'll be the ones to decide that after they root through your purse, after they read all your text, after they raid your apartment, confiscate all of its contents, then conjure up evidence out of the air on a wing and a prayer and malicious intelligence nonsense. Any presumption of innocence long since gone, right along with your comforts and constants. Historically first they will come for the communists. So why in the fuck would I say I'm a communist? Well, it might be I love my community more than the monsters of opulence who are holding us hostage, who are vomiting promises. Might be I'm all done seeing our pensions and benefits harvested. Might be I'm all done watching the populace being disarmed in the guise of an armistice. Watching a woman collapse on the floor who will rise no more. She's wheeled out the door and you're next in line for the pharmacist. If you can get me to vote, it's a hard no confidence. But part of the charm of deception is politics wearing the mask of incompetence. It's all in the art of austerity, darling. It's all in the slide of the providence. Until home is as wide as your cubicle height and is only as deep as your coffin is. Maybe I'm miles away from impatience, aching to break off the head of the snake where the capital lust, reptile brain, and the margin of profit is. Like off with his. Like off with his.
I guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want me to say? You prove it's possible to sleep for days, and to still think you're right here awake. The cost of living isn't much to make, but God, it's so hard to save. And when they told you everything was safe, were you safe?